Hello and welcome to our next session in Spec Stepping. We're going to be going through the Attribution Reporting API. Now, it should be noted that this is an experimental technology. They've just released this at the time I'm recording this video. So use this with caution. Always check the browser compatibility. I'm jump down to that and you'll see it's not used in Firefox yet, things like that. So I'm assuming this will become more widespread as it gains traction. But currently, I would not use this in any production, but just thought I'd go over a little bit about how this works. So there's documentation here on the MDN site that I would recommend you go through. It's got a lot of great information. Bottom line is this. So the API, it's experimental web feature. It's designed to measure the ad conversions while preserving end user privacy, which is why this is probably going to gain some traction. So if you've ever thought, man, they've got all this tracking stuff all over the web page and things, and I don't really like my information being out there. So it eliminates the need for third-party cookies, providing more secure and privacy compliant way to track performance. Like I'm sure all of us have checked that. Yes, I want to use allow cookies or no, those sorts of things. And so what I'm going to show you is a little bit about how it works. Again, it's brand new, so it's not used in production yet, but they are introducing it so that you can get familiar with it. So we'll walk through some of the key components. So what is it? So advertisers, often when you do some advertising, like some of you may have done work with Google Ads, things like that, you want metrics. You want to know how it works. You want to know what your return on investment is. So you want to know how well your ads perform. Well, how many users, saw the ad? How many were converted into purchases? The way we do this traditionally is we rely on tracking software like Google Ads, things like that, third-party cookies, all that stuff. The problem with doing that is that sometimes on your website, you may have users on your website that you're trying to track how they use your ads, but using some of those third-party services is another opportunity for breaching, another opportunity for that privacy to be infiltrated. So the less we can do that, the better. Now, sometimes it's necessary. But so what this particular API does is it allows us to do attribution reporting without exposing that across third-party domains. So it enables conversion tracking without exposing users' personal browsing data. So what are some of the key features? Some of the key features are it tracks conversions, clicks, purchases, things like that. It stores data in a private local cache within the browser, so you don't have to worry about it getting outside of there. It limits data sharing to specific parties. So, the advertiser or ad tech provider, nobody else gets it. It also requires SSL, HTTPS, secure connection, so it won't work on an insecure site, which all sites should be secure nowadays anyway. So how does it work? So you set up attribution sources, and then when a user interacts with an ad, clicks a link, what have you, whatever that ad, however it's set up, the browser stores that source data locally. Then there is a trigger, an attribution trigger. And what that does is when that conversion occurs, you add an item to your cart. Then the browser matches it with that attribution source. So basically, bottom line, it goes like this. You click on an ad. That information that you've clicked on that is stored in your browser. You browse around. You may or may not, as an end user, add that item to your cart, whatever the product or service that's being sold. But once you add it to your cart, that trigger or checkout or whatever trigger you want, that trigger matches up the attribution source that I clicked on ad A and then I checked out versus clicking on ad B and then checked out and added it to my cart. So it matches up and then it sends that data to the server where it needs to be stored. So it goes over the concepts here and how it works. There's a nice little chart here which goes over kind of what I just explained. But I would recommend you reading through this and it'll walk you through some of this stuff. So let me just show you, again, this is experimental, but let me just show you some basic code on how it might work. So here in this, let me just close that and open my screen bigger here for you. So here you have just a basic HTML page, nothing fancy, right? And so I have a hyperlink that goes to a particular product. So this is my ad. Imagine this is an ad. I got to browse, I got an image or something like that. And I've got an ad here, and they can, there's an image there, and they can click on it and it goes to that product page within your e-commerce. And then they can add it to the cart. Well, that's pretty straightforward as far as I've got an ad. I click on it, can add to cart, all that's e-commerce stuff. That's pretty straightforward out of the box. Well, here on the JavaScript is where we come in with the actual attribution stuff. So what you have to do is you have to register the trigger, what triggers the reporting, and what is the trigger that triggers the actual reporting to the server side. So what triggers the source and all that stuff. So what you do is here we're fetching a trigger, in this case from the server side, and it's a post. And then, so you send that fetch call in a post form to the server side, and you send along these headers that it's eligible for a trigger, and it's just JSON data. And then the event we're looking at is an add to cart event. And I just threw in this product ID and value there. And then what happens is when you get the response, it's been registered successfully or not, or it failed to register. Then here, when they click add to cart, that trigger is registered as far as it's then sent to the server, so that, okay, they clicked on this ad, and then it was they added to cart. So now we know that that ad worked. That user came, clicked on the ad, then went to the cart. So on the server side, you got to do a few things. And I'm assuming this is probably going to change somewhat, and it'll be different as far as how you go about this. I wanted to cover the client side, but it may be different how you go about it when you are, depending on the server side technology you're using. But basically, you have to have a source register here. So and this source ID event, what's the destination? That's for the headers to mark sources. So this is for source, and this is for trigger. So remember I mentioned earlier, you got to have a source that when I click on the ad, that keeps track of it. Then when I click on the trigger, that completes it. So it closes the funnel. So here's how you currently set up the source, and here's how you currently set up the trigger on the server side. So when you actually hit that item, like the page, this will automatically be tracked as a source. And then when you hit the trigger, this will be tracked as the trigger. Again, I would recommend reading through this code. If we jump here, for example, there is a demo here. Let me just open that up real quick. So again, if you're going to use this in a browser, there are some things you've got to do to have it work. If you're working with this in your local environment, there's some experimental flags and stuff like you see down here. Experimental flags in Chrome and stuff to get it to work. But so if you want to mess with it, you can. But this is the demo. And let me just jump to the code real quick so you can kind of see here. So in this code, you have the advertiser information. This is how to set it up and run it locally if you wish to do that. Let me jump into the functions. So you have the advertiser, the home, the publisher, all that stuff. So for example, I will jump into this. Here's the advertiser. And this goes into quite a lot of detail. I'm not going to go through all this because this is meant to be a quick video. But you can jump into that code. You can reuse it. You can mess with it, things like that. And download it, run the demo in your local area. So basically, bottom line is this. If you're going to be tracking information and users and stuff, this is a more secure way to do it. So I imagine it'll probably get more traction as it gets developed and gets more adopted and more people have their input as far as the capabilities. So I hope that helps. Hope that explains this particular API. Feel free to play with it. Again, I would not put it in production yet, but go ahead and play with it and see what you can come up with as far as getting it to work and having conversions from your e-commerce and other usage recorded. Okay, thanks and happy stepping.